So today, like I said, we were going over all of these topics. Scouts Canada paperwork, planning your trip, budgeting and fundraising, getting youth on board, life at camps, at your campsite, programs and getting to them, since our camp is so big and you travel from your campsite to program areas. Staying organized and planning your day, tips on what to pack, since you are self-contained and bringing everything to camp. The services we provide, some tips for international groups, the composite program with Outward Bound we have available this summer, and a Q&A session. So first up, we have Jake, and he is sharing about the paperwork that's required for Scouts Canada. He is just joining us for this section of the presentation or the session. So if you have questions right after this slide about Scouts Canada paperwork, you can ask, but then afterwards he'll be disappearing to go into another meeting. All right, so Jake, it is all you.
Thank you. Yes, so to attend Scouts to Haliburton Scout Reserve, Scouts Canada does require some paperwork to be filled out. One of those paperworks is the Adventure Application Form, AAF. My group, when we go to HSR, our group uses Scout Tracker and conveniently has the AAF built into it. It's really helpful for chasing down parents to get them to fill out the form because it's all done electronically, and it's part of the process that they do when they register the kid to attend using Scout Tracker. So I recommend using Scout Tracker for that. If not, you can download the PDF copy of the Category 3 form because it is a week-long camp. So the Category 3 form is required to be filled out. And that could be downloaded from the Scouts Canada website as a PDF. And you just give it to your parents, they fill it out, sign it, return it back to you. Something else we are going to talk about is multiple groups camping together, or if you're wanting to propose doing a composite camp with your council. We do have an event application process that needs to be completed. It is all online, and it could be found by visiting the Scouts Canada's website. What we consider an event is anything that has more than 2 groups attending together and participating in a program. So if you have 3 groups going, or if you have a composite camp, CC does a pretty good composite camp every year, where it's one group of scouters that open up registration to any youth in the council. That will require the event application process, and that will be supported directly by your CK3 team once you submit the application process. Part of the event application process is we request a budget to make sure that you're budgeting for everything accordingly, and you have an emergency response plan. Once the CK3 or designate receives those, then they'll work with you to approve and support you along the way if needed. Is there any questions about that?
Yeah, sorry, it's Larry Brooks. Yes, I do have a question.
Okay.
Just looking at what's on the screen, so looks like there's an AAF form from Scouts Canada.
Yes.
And then what goes to the Key 3?
So the only thing that would go to the Key 3 is if you're looking at doing a multi-group excursion or offering to operate a composite camp.
Okay, so for years I've been helping Bob McCullough run the Mississauga Composite Camp, and
yes.
James Drysdale and Dave Bushell have been also helping. They're on the call too. So we just want to make sure we fill out the right forms this year, because I think we've been going under the radar for like 25 years.
Yeah, so the event application process is something that was brought recently, and as far as I know, your contingent has been doing it correctly, as I've seen the application. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, you guys have been doing it exactly the way that it's supposed to happen for your contingent.
Okay, and where can I get a copy of the event application form?
The best way to find it is if you go to scouts.ca
Yeah.
and under resources, the event management playbook.
Okay.
And the application forms is a smart sheets, and there's a link you just click in, fill it out. I do recommend for the smart sheets, because there's no way to work on it and save it and come back to finish it later. So I recommend putting time aside to fill it out to complete it, because if you walk away from your computer, the form doesn't save it as you work on it.
Can we screenshot it? Because that's going to be a near possibility for me. Impossibility to do it all in one session.
We are working on a new process, like not a new process, but a new system, so you can save it as you go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we have another question.
Hey, Jake, it's Danish from First AFC. So what happens if there are two groups that are wanting to attend and they're in different councils? So does each group have to go to their own CK3 and get this event application form approved?
So with two groups, you're fine to just do it as like each group would both have to make sure that you do the AFs and category 3s.
Right. So each group will be sending the application to their own CK3 designate. So there are going to be two event application forms.
If it's two groups, then Scouts Canada considers that a linking camp. So you won't need to do the whole event application. You'll just do the paperwork required as if you're going on a camp with your group.
So I guess it's a little bit confusing because it says more than two groups attending together.
Yeah.
Then you need to have an event paperwork required, and that needs to be approved from CKT. That's what my understanding is.
Okay, sorry. So if it's two groups attending, then it's considered a linking camp, and you'll just do it as if your group is going to camp HSR. If it's three or more groups, is what, or participants from multiple groups, that is more than three or more is when you have to do it. Yeah.
So if it's two groups, then that's not required. Okay. Understood.
Yeah. Two groups is what they consider a linking.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Okay, great questions. Are there any other questions for Jake, as he will be disappearing to go to another meeting? Yeah, we have another one from Steve.
Hi there, Jake. Sorry, I put my mic down. I just wanted to clarify. So two groups, all we need is the AF.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Jake? Okay. If we find that we have questions towards the end, we can ask in the Q&A, and I will do my best to answer. If I don't have the answer, then I will get that information for you and pass that on. Okay. Thank you so much, Jake. You're welcome to stay as long as you would like. All right. Up next, we have Scouter Andy talking to us about planning your trip to HSR.
All right. Yeah, this is the plan part of Plan Do Review, right? And yeah, and one of the reasons that we've been doing these info nights is because a lot of people, if they haven't been before, find the whole process pretty daunting because it's a pretty big deal camp, and you kind of got to manage a whole bunch of stuff for a week. But it's actually not that bad if you're a little bit methodical about it. So first thing is, the first thing is deciding that you're going to go to HSR, and that should be a no-brainer. The answer is yes, go to HSR for a week. It's awesome. But once you've made that decision, then you got to kind of figure out, how you're going to work it. And I've kind of put a couple of bullet points down here. The first one really is, planning the whole week camp experience. How you're going to get to HSR, how you're going to get your gear there, who's coming, and if there's any people coming for, only part of the week because of other commitments or whatever, what your logistical plan is to get them in and out. Picking your program, and Tia will talk more about that later in terms of all the wonderful program offerings. But to make sure that you get a schedule that makes sense for you, kind of figure that out early on in the game. Keep in mind, as has been mentioned, that you've got to get to and from everything, and your transportation for the week is your canoe. And that can take a little while depending on where you are on the lake and where your next activity is. So when you kind of figure out your schedule, make sure that you've got a good plan for keeping in mind the travel times. So, and that goes to, we'll talk later about meal planning and how that fits into it as well. The biggest problem that a lot of novice groups get, and some experienced groups get, is, they get all into doing a really big involved breakfast, and then they look at their watch and they go, okay, we're supposed to be at the hub in 5 minutes. That's not going to happen. That's one of the you get better at it the more you go, and you start thinking of, and you've got to know when your kind of cut bait point is, which is, okay, guys, just leave it. We got to go. And then we'll do it better next time. Figuring out the timing of your meals. One really great idea that a lot of successful groups do is very often Thursday morning, they will schedule not to have any program activities at all. By that point in the week, everybody needs a little bit of downtime, need to get a little bit organized. And it also gives you lots of time to practice for regatta, which we'll talk about more later on. Figuring out how you're going to do your meals. One of the big questions on that is how you're going to do your cooking. Are you going to divide into a bunch of patrols and every patrol does their own thing, which is what our troop does at most of our camps, although we don't do it that way at Haliburton. Are you going to do a central kitchen? We tend to do it that way, and that's partly because what we do was for many years a long-running composite camp, which we're actually working on bringing back, and we've always had one organized central kitchen for that. And then if you're doing a central kitchen, do you have a dedicated team that's just going to run the kitchen, or are you going to have a duty roster and cycle people through it? Once you've figured out those things, you can kind of do your meal plan and then figure out, when in the week you're going to want groceries and, what you can buy at the beginning and what you're going to have to supplement throughout the week. The other big thing is putting together a really good plan for move-in. Move-in day, if you haven't been before, is very, very hectic. And if you're new to it, you kind of sort of stand there bewildered as everything happens around you, because the other people around you have all done this many times and they're pretty experienced. But making sure that everybody arrives together, because you only get barged into your site as, a site load of people. So if you've got half your people there, and they've all unloaded their gear down at the dock, they're clogging up access to the boats for everybody else, you're not going to get moved in. So do some really good time planning on that part, and figure out, how you're going to organize your site. We'll talk about that a little bit later in one of the other sections, but making sure that everybody knows what's going on. T-shirts, I put that on there because a lot of groups that come to Haliburton for a week like to do a group T-shirt of some sort. It's really, really popular to wear those on regatta day. It's in some troops, it's really popular to wear them the whole week. I don't encourage that because my nose doesn't like it very much when that happens for a whole week. I do like to have the scouts change occasionally, but we will very often pick a couple of times when everybody wears their shirt. We usually don't actually hand them out until we get there, but you know, a lot of groups do that as a custom shirt, and you change the color every year. And it's a really good keepsake, and just sort of work that into your budget. There are places online that'll do t-shirts really inexpensively. The other thing to think about is if you either are going to bring an outboard motor or if you're going to rent a boat from HSR. It certainly does make some of the logistics, and we'll talk a little bit more about food and resupply later, but it's one of those things to consider in terms of being able to do runs in and out without having to take the time it takes to paddle a canoe all the way down to the L dock and back, which is about 40 minutes. So optimizing your timing, that's another thing to keep in mind. It's relatively inexpensive. It's money well spent for getting for better use of your time during the week.
And we have a question from Karen.
If I could just jump in terms of planning, I found it very helpful for us to know which of our scouters were going, to make sure we had our scouters, and also what their jobs were going to be. So, and working with people's skills and interests. So I planned the overall logistics and the fundraising and budgeting for our group. But we had another scouter that took care of all of the gear, the quartermaster role, and then we had another scouter that took care of all of the groceries, itemizing what needed to be purchased, purchasing, doing whatever prep was required, and making sure that food stayed cold for the week. And that was a way for us to sort of organize ourselves that worked really well.
That's a great point. Thank you so much, Karen. So we will move on. All right, and Karen, it's you, budgeting and fundraising.
Yay. So T and I had a bit of a chat about the cost per camper, and it definitely varies depending on how you would like to organize yourselves. Last year, our group budgeted about $453 per camper. I just did the math, looking at our accounting here. And what we did was even the scouters paid the same amount as the youth. I know some groups have the cost for the youth incorporate some of the scouter costs, and I mean, I think it does make sense. You know, we're giving away a week of our hard-earned vacation time for this, so that's just something that you guys need to decide as a group. Once we figured out our budget, we also decided that we wanted to fundraise at least $100 per youth. So we told everybody it was going to be $450. We told everybody it was going to be $550. We wanted to fundraise $100 per youth and bring it up to $450. We actually fundraised enough that it only cost me and my two children about $750 for the three of us, which I think is a great deal for even just one kid doing a sleepaway camp for a week. So, you know, keeping that in mind as well. Your cost per camper includes your camp fee, the groceries, propane, ice, all of those things. We got t-shirts made, but we just did them as you know, more generic, not strictly for Haliburton, and we love them. We got this super lightweight material, and yeah, we wore them a lot. I was a little concerned for the travel home because it was also our travel shirt, but it passed the stink test, at least until I got to my house. My husband might have thought differently. And then, of course, we wanted to get our camp crest. We also budgeted for our group to get an ice cream treat at the hub on Regatta Day. So we were able to do that for our youth as well, which was a lot of fun. And then in terms of fundraising, there's lots of ideas, and some of you probably already have lots of great ideas. We did an e-waste scrap metal / bottle drive, and that was a tremendous that was the majority of our fundraising. We got more than $1,000 in just in the bottle drive, which is amazing because I really thought we were going to have to go door to door, and they brought their bottles to us, so that was awesome. I know some people do spaghetti dinners. Scout Seeds was a fundraiser for us as well, and I like doing those types of events too to get more visibility for scouting in the community. And then Cabela's offers this outdoor fund, so you can actually apply for a grant. It's a pretty detailed grant application process. There's several pages, but there's a lot of groups that have gotten grants from Cabela's, and that could also go towards your needs there. And like I said, we were able to bring this down. It was less than $300 per person with the fundraising that we did. And we also organized it with our group, which I may not be the same as other people, but for us, it was if you were there fundraising, then you got the credit. It wasn't if we fundraised $1,000, it wasn't $1,000 divided by 10. It was $1,000 divided by the people that were there based on sort of the hours that they committed to that. So, I got a bit more because I was at that e-waste scrap metal weekend, like the entire weekend. More than somebody that would have just been volunteering for an hour, and certainly more than somebody that didn't volunteer at all. We did have a couple of youth that paid closer to $500 for their week because they didn't want to do any of the fundraising. So, for us, it was you get out of it what you put into it. Questions?
Sure, Karen. Sorry, it's Larry Brooks.
Yes.
Question for you. So that $550 is for your estimate for 2025 for camping for the week?
Yeah. So that includes sort of the $350 per camper.
Yeah, plus the tax on that. Yeah.
Plus, I
I'm
try to budget around $10 a day for food. And then we also had, gas, propane, and then the crests are $5 a kid. I estimated about $25 per for a t-shirt, but we got those for less than that, a little bit less than that. So.
I really, actually, if you don't mind, I'll try and email you afterwards because we do our composite camp and we've really skinnied down our budget, and we also rent a bus, so we also all arrive at the same time. Mm-hmm. But for 20 youth to go plus 6 leaders, the bus averages about $100 a piece. But this year my budget is like $829 per youth to go to composite camp with us. Now we don't do any separate fundraising because we have youth come from all over the place.
Yeah, so just to add on what Karen was saying, and Larry, what you're talking about, the budget for each group is going to look different, and like the cost per kid is going to look different, depending where you're traveling from, how you're traveling. Buses are definitely going to be more expensive.
Bus is one thing, but even your overall, I'm interested in your meal plan because even for $349 plus tax for the camp fee, that's $400. You're only spending $150 then on everything else per person. Like, do you have a huge group going? Or?
Well, we had there were 16 of us last year.
Okay, that's a good group.
That went
good size.
And yeah, I mean, we did everything that we could to trim our costs where we could, because we were really pushing at $100 per youth to cover the food and fuel and like all of the things that we paid for at Haliburton.
Yeah, so it's going to look different for everybody. I know some groups, they budget higher for like closer to like 800 per kid, depending on, there's so many factors that go into it.
Yeah, and there are some people that like to do like fancier meals during the week. Like they like to take advantage of this to do like sort of like more gourmet cooking. We did not do any gourmet. We did survey the youth, and we did have one that wanted surf and turf, but we did not budget for that. So
That's fair.
um,
We do have another question.
yes.
Yeah, hey Karen, it's Danish from First AFC again. So this e-waste scrap metal, how does that work? How do you raise money doing that?
So you can actually like go online, just like kind of Google e-waste or scrap metal in your where you are, and find a business. There's about like I'm just outside of Ottawa. There's about 3 different ones in our area, and there was one that another scout group uses frequently. So we reached out to them, and it was great. We pick the date. We do all of the advertising. So we advertise, locally with our through our city councilors newsletter and Facebook. And they, the company brings like the big bins to our location. And then as they get filled up, we call and ask for more bins, and they come, and then what they end up weighing them at the end and itemizing it for us and give us the check. So that was really great. And then the scouters at the end of each of their shifts took all of the bottles that had been and cans and whatever that had been collected and brought them to the bottle return to get the funding for that right away. And then we just kind of added it all together.
I
But
see.
for us, it worked really well. But we haven't had like our little area hadn't had a scrap metal or e-waste drive in quite a long time. So I think that was helpful. Oh, and we also had some scouters with trailers going to people's homes, so we had residents reach out to us to say, like, oh, I have a washing machine, could you come pick it up? And so we would actually have scouters go out with trailers to pick those up to bring them to the fundraiser for older people or people that weren't able to manage that on their own.
Right. So basically, there are businesses that are paying for whatever that we are able to collect. And then,
Yes.
okay. All right. Thanks.
And that was really profitable for us. The e-waste fundraiser, we made $2,400 on that one, just on
Wow.
our accounting.
That's amazing. Okay, thank you.
All right. Just before moving on, I do have a couple groups that sent me their budgets. I will send that out after this session, just so you can have an idea of like what their budgets look like, and then I'll organize them just so they make more sense and you're able to adjust them, just so it gives you an idea of what budgeting looks like and all that it entails. So you'll get that resource after the session tonight. Okay. Okay. Up next we have Steve again.
Hi. So just a couple of things about getting youth and parents on board to come to camp. We treat Haliburton like it's our Super Bowl. Some years we don't go to Haliburton if we're going somewhere else, like we went to PJ last summer. But this is sort of the thing we work towards all year. So it's always something top of mind, and we present it to the youth constantly. I put a link in there, and I'm going to put it in the chat as well, so people there. This is our patrol manual. So our patrols camp on their own through Haliburton. As they do through the year. So again, we're building on our programming. But this basically gives you a rundown and gives everybody a rundown of what's happening. And we can provide this really early in the year. So once we pick our program, we can put it on that first page that's there. And then there's all the tools and things that they need to do. And so we'll plan their menus ahead of time. We plan what they're doing ahead of time. They plan their shopping list ahead of time and all those things. So it's a constant process, and we're talking about it months in advance, and they're working on it months in advance to get interested in on it. Hosting parent information to getting parents on board is great. We actually do it as part of our BP banquet. So we do the slideshow of the last year. We show everything, and what that does is it doesn't just get our scouts interested in going, it gets the Cubs interested in going and the Beaver Scouts interested in going, and then a parent going, hey, wait a second, that's a thing I could do. Maybe I don't want to do crafts every night at Beavers, but that's a thing I can do. And then that's a recruitment tool for us as well, for volunteers as well. One of the things that our group has done for a long time is we keep a logbook. And so like these are our logbooks, and so the years are on them. And if you go back far enough, I actually wrote the first log in this, so it's pretty neat that I get to share that with my scouts now. But the logbook then really is a recruitment tool. So like if I got 10 minutes in a meeting where I don't know what to do with it, the current logbook is in the church. I grab it and somebody reads their log from some day on the Tuesday. So what did you do at Haliburton last year on Tuesday? Boom, there it is. Instant recruitment, right? Funny story, what activities they did, what they liked, what they ate, what they didn't like. And it's an instant way of connecting to what the thing is going to go forward. And one of the things, as Andy sort of said, is you're on a canoe the whole time. And when you explain that to parents and kids, sometimes they get apprehensive about that, particularly kids who've never done that. We're really lucky we have a scouter who is certified in running lessons for canoes, but there's lots of opportunities to get kids into a boat and familiar with them ahead of time. And that's just one thing to sort of pull back the scariness of possibly having to be in a boat all week, which is really not. The kids, like, by Monday, they're flying, they're improving so much, and it's just a great skill to see them develop. So those are just a few things in a nutshell that we do to get our youth and parents on board with going to camp. And it's just again, that document there is a resource. Don't copy and paste everything in there. There's a bunch of rules that may not be for you, or things in there that aren't for you. But please feel free to copy that and use it. And again, it's just a great thing to parents, like, what is this week? Here's the week, right? This is what it looked like last time. This is what it's going to look like forward. Here's what the kids say about it when they're doing it, and it's a great way to keep kids, keep everybody engaged in the process of
Okay, fantastic.
Sorry, I can't help myself. I want to jump in again.
Yeah.
So first of all, one thing I forgot to say for my slide was, you need to make your deposit for Haliburton in January. And so, we asked for a $50 deposit from everybody just to demonstrate that they were interested and committed to going. And that was refundable if anybody changed their mind, because the bulk payment isn't until the end of the camp, basically. And we also did sort of a monthly payment structure rather than asking parents to give us the full amount at once. And then for most of us, the last payment wasn't required because of our fundraising. And then moving to this one, Stephen, one thing for me was I was really nervous about going to Haliburton my first time, as some of you might be, because you're not really sure what to expect or what it's going to look like. And there was a work weekend in, I think it was the first weekend of June. And I went there with one of my sons, and it was great because we got to see everything. We got to realize that canoe trip back and forth is not that big a deal. It's not that far. And of course, as the week went on, they got better and better at it as well. But for me, it was really good to see, where the activities are taking place, where our campsite's located, how far it is from other people, how far it is to the hub, all of that stuff. So if anybody has sort of that anxiety that I had, you can just watch for those work weekends. That I know that Tia will be looking for lots of help in May and June to get the camp ready.
Yeah, and then I'll just echo on the scariness of it. Like, I mean, I was a 10-year-old who never had been in a canoe, and then I now, like, one of my passions now is canoeing, and then this camp is what drove that passion in my life, right? Like, I take friends canoeing and Algonquin all the time, and this is where I learned that love. So it happens for the kids that we're taking, even though it may be scary for some of us at the first time. My parents were scared, very scared, sending me.
All right, fantastic. Thank you, guys. And we have Andy talking about life at campsites.
Yeah, and this is a whole bunch of stuff that the standard phrase is your mileage will vary because everybody does this differently. One of the neat things is a lot of the spontaneity that happens, and people figure out their own way of doing things. But there's some stuff to think about in advance. So that things go smoothly. The first thing is really to, in advance, decide how you're going to organize your participants. Are you going to divide them up into patrols? Are you going to break them down by ages? If you've got, are the scouters going to do their own thing? Are they going to be distributed amongst youth patrols? How the duties are going to be shared? and have a discussion in advance about this. Very often we'll do a prep meeting just for the gang that's going to Haliburton and kind of talk through all of that and make sure that everybody's on the same page so that they don't get a surprise when we get to camp. I liked what Steve said about calling it their Super Bowl. And I described it as make it special. And it really is. This should be the pinnacle of the year for your scouts. And it really has the potential to do that. So, we have always absolutely gone nuts on that. So we're talking about, are the meals utilitarian or gourmet? We always go to the gourmet end. We do special meals, special activities. We use it to build camaraderie and team spirit. Sometimes we'll incorporate some sort of a competition or a challenge in the week. As far as the meals, we can talk more about that later, but just to give you drop a couple of ideas. So we really do make it special. So middle of the week for dessert, they have root beer floats, which is not something that anybody thinks about doing at camp, but we arranged to do it. We do a bunch of really fancy desserts in the evening, have some really, really good meals that have become traditions. And it's really not to say that you have to do it that way, but find some way to make it special that everybody's going to go, wow, that was far more amazing than I ever imagined it was going to be. It is a week-long camp, so don't approach it like you would, a Friday night to Sunday afternoon camp. Plan to go deeper into the activities and into camp life skills. There's a lot of things that you find out. People kind of go through a bit of a mood cycle during the week. Expect that. Everybody will be really eager and raring to go. By the end of Tuesday or getting into Wednesday, some people are starting to get tired. They haven't been sleeping well. And, they're maybe, a little bit down. And then that sort of starts to pick up, kind of focusing on regatta on Thursday afternoon will really work. Everybody's raring to go on that. By the time they get through that, it's Thursday afternoon. Well, tomorrow we're going to start packing up. We're going to go to campfire tomorrow night and we're going home, and everybody's over that little hump. Think in advance about how you're going to lay out your campsite, but really be prepared to adapt to surprises. Sometimes you get to the site and you go, well, this is not really what I was thinking it was going to be. Despite how much you've looked at all of the wonderful, aerial drone footage and photos and everything else that's available and the topo maps and everything else, it sometimes does not really look like what you thought it did. So, be prepared to kind of figure out something different. And typically what we'll do is whoever goes over on the first barge, we're usually a multi-barge group, because we bring a lot of people and a lot of stuff, but whoever goes over on the first one, their first job is, we deliberately send over the people that are going to get the lay of the land and figure out how we're going to set up the campsite so that when everybody comes with more gear, it just sort of makes sense. And there's already a plan in place. Where you're going to put your, Kaibo locations, where you're going to put your dining shelter, where you're going to put your kitchen, good spots for tents, which again, if you've already figured out how you're dividing people up, if you've got patrols or whatever, then it's just a case of locating stuff on the site, where you're going to pull up your canoes, and be prepared to, we review after we see if our plan worked when we did it. And this is something that feeds into multiple years as well, that next year you go, okay, make a note. And we actually do. We write down notes for what we're going to do for next year based on the stuff we learned from this year. Fishing has always been a really big attraction for our youth. Some of the best moments we had this past summer was with a bunch of youth that discovered that, if they got up early, they could go sit at the end of the dock and fish. I mean, how often you get kids getting up early at camp, all the way at, towards the end of a week-long camp? It was a big driver. So plan for that and encourage them to participate. Expect any kind of weather, have a good plan for that. And we've got lots of different kinds of weather every time we've gone. Start thinking in advance about pack up and move out. The more stuff that you can sort of start getting organized early, Saturday morning is hectic, and there's actually far more than you think you're going to have to do on Saturday morning to pack up. And the earlier that you can start that, the better it's going to be. So, start early, figure out stuff. Even if there's even some stuff, gear that you can move out early, you can actually get a barge and get gear moved out early if you're ready for it, to minimize the amount of stuff that you got to move on Saturday morning. Regatta has been mentioned a couple of times. For anybody that has not been and not experienced it, it is a big camp-wide water-based competition. It is the highlight of the week. It's campsite against campsite, and there's also, you can get early on in the week a list of what all the activities are going to be and what the rules are for that. And you can figure out, everybody can figure out what they're going to do, who's going to do what, and they can practice. And that's a fun thing. If you got nothing else to do at your site, spending time practicing for regatta, whether they're, practicing canoe over canoe or in and out canoe race, or the various swimming skills, or any of the other things that are part of regatta. And maybe Tia will talk a little bit later about that, about what that involves when we're talking about all of the camp program and facilities. But and the same for campfire, which is Friday evening, thinking early on about what you're going to do as a song or a skit, and have that ready, because when you get to the end of the week, all of a sudden it comes really fast. This weird thing happens with time at camp, but all of a sudden it's Friday afternoon. Keep things well supplied. Don't get behind on ice. Don't get behind on having empty water jugs. We've got our youth pretty well trained that the moment, anytime you get in the canoes, you go, oh, take any water jugs that are empty. There's a spot right by the dock that we put empty water jugs, and it's just understood that if you're canoeing somewhere, you take an empty water jug if it's there. Because there's nothing worse than being, halfway through meal prep and discovering you don't have the water to finish meal prep. Now you got to wait while somebody paddles over, gets water, and comes back. Use your more senior youth as mentors for the newbies, especially if your senior youth have been to HSR before. And even when they become rovers, even when they become scouters, they're your experts at how camp works, and they're the ones that will help motivate the new youth and will help teach them. And the last point is really key. Make sure the scouters enjoy camp too. For a couple of reasons. First of all, you want them to be available next year to bring more youth to camp. But secondly, the youth can tell if the adults are having fun. And I've always believed that if the youth see the scouters having fun, getting a little bit silly and enjoying themselves, it gives them permission to have fun too, and they will enjoy camp much better. You're muted, Tia.
There we go. Thank you for sharing all of that, Andy. Those some great tips there. Okay, so one of the biggest parts of HSR is that we have lots of programming. So this is just a little insight into what we have available. So we have archery, we have climbing wall, we have kayaking, we have low ropes, and we're getting a new course next year, which is very exciting. We have rappelling off of a real rock face. It's about 60 feet. And so some kids get very scared at the top, but our staff are really great at talking to them and making sure that they feel comfortable going down it. We have our airsoft range. We have sailing. We have snorkel islands. We have out-tripping hikes. So we started this program again this past summer, where we have some of our staff are out-trippers, so they can take you on the hikes, the various ones we have available. We have 35 kilometers worth of trails, and I think it's like 10 or 12 trails that that entails. So our staff can lead you in that. We have stand-up paddleboard. We have survival islands, which teaches you some survival skills about water, edible plants, fire making, things like that. And Trapper's Cabin. That is a program that's more based on like what happens, the history of HSR. Before we owned it, it used to be a logging property. So speaking about logging and the tools and stuff that was used around the property, and also speaks to different types of furs and trapping of animals. And then Scott is going to talk about how getting to and from programs and staying organized with that, as you are at campsites and our programs are all around. So thank you, Scott.
So one thing Tia didn't mention that was not listed there is the Star Hike. So that is an HSR special, which is a 10 p.m. get your group on a barge in the darkness, which is really unique. So I encourage everyone to sign up for that. Yeah, so that kind of goes with some of the other points here. It's a bit of a wall of words. I apologize for that, but I suggest you do that early in the week because you can get rained out. And so, you know, you have one or two or three groups in the evening doing that, and you only have so many evenings. So that is something we usually do or very early on just to make sure we get that included. That is one of my bullets here, but I'll just go linearly here. So I've heard from a couple of the earlier presenters talking about how, you know, especially if you have new first year scouts that haven't canoed before, space out your programs. Okay, so you know, having the Monday morning after, or the you know after they got their canoe and making a 9 a.m. We tend to avoid that, especially if we have less capable canoeists, because you know, somebody mentioned you get up, you rush a breakfast, and then you're rushing over, and then you know the first year scouts want to be in a canoe with their other first year scouts, and then they're going in circles, and everyone's getting frustrated because you're late. So maybe Monday morning, you book at 10:30 instead of a 9, and then try to get there for 9 and see what happens. Give yourself lots of time, you know, until you've done the canoe trip back and forth, and the scouts are capable and know where they're going, you know how long it takes. I tend to leave extra time, and if you get there and you go to the hub, they always, you know, bring $1 or 2, and they can buy a bit of candy for a snack, just as a bit of a carrot to get them moving as well. So give yourself extra time, especially on the first few days. Just some you know notes like distances. Rappelling is a bit of an extra hike to up the hill to the rappelling cliff. So that's something to keep in mind. We do some back to back. So Monday morning we've typically done low ropes and climbing wall. They're right beside each other and they're low impact. So you know the scouts might not have slept that well. They're a little tired. You don't want to stress. You know, go into a high exertion one like I mean advanced kayaking or something silly, which usually don't get to late until later in the week. So we tend to kind of gradually work them into getting to the event, doing the events, and then getting back for lunch. So we tend to do that early in the week. But so that's an example of back to back. Doing the archery and airsoft range, they are right beside each other, and that's another kind of lower impact, less physical event you could do. You know, right beside each other in terms of scheduling. So you do a 9 o'clock and a 10:30 and on the same day, and then you've already got to the site and don't have to go back and forth. Some of the water ones are the exertion ones, sailing, canoeing, or sorry, kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding. I tend to do that as that's the only activity for the half day. It tends to tire them out. You know, they've canoed there, then they get in a kayak and kayak around for an hour, hour and a half. They tend to be very tired. So I would only do that and then leave the rest of that half day, go back a little bit early for lunch or for dinner, give them some downtime to relax, rather than packing a couple exerting ones in the same half day. Book early in the week. Karen had suggested, you know, Thursday morning you could leave off for rebooks, right? If you miss something or it gets rained out or there's issues, then you have a chance to rebook, or you can book twice. And then, you know, some people book the airsoft range twice because they know the kids, scouts typically like that because some of them, you know, guns are a big thing. So they like to shoot things. So you can book that twice as well. That's a point. There is no reason you can't book the same activity twice. It's not like you can only do it once. Of course, making sure that every other group has a chance to do that. So I'm sure the organizers will let you know if that ever comes up. There's some, yeah. So I think Tia's slide mentioned out trips. There are hikes that you can do for probably whatever you want. 2 hours, you want a full day. You can decide. Depends on the motivations of your group what you want to do. We every year we go to the waterfall at High Peaks. It's a fairly grueling hike. It's probably only 45 minutes or an hour, you know, but it's a good pace. Our group kept up really well last year. But you get there, you're a little sweaty, you're tired, and maybe a little bit buggy, and then this beautiful waterfall. You sit in nice cool water for an hour, and just it's like a cold spring type of thing. So really relaxing. And then yes, you have to go back, unfortunately, through the same sweaty. And then HDOC is another one that's not even listed, but you know, there swimming you can, you know, T is recording this, so
Yeah.
you can swim near a site, but at the HDOC it's a different experience. There's a lifeguard there. You can play games. I bring a little football and we throw it back and forth in the water. So that in itself is just a little kind of side event that's it's a full swim time with everybody. And I'll cut it off there, folks. If you have specific questions about individual events, please let me know. We can do it in the Q&A session, or if you want to ask now, but I'll stop now.
I'll just add quickly, Scott, that it's really good to just be flexible and go with the flow. You know, if you have a few rainy days, you just need to figure out how to make it work. We ended up compressing a lot of activities to one day. To sort of make up. And it just meant that, you know, kids might have had to choose between if they wanted to do kayaking or if they wanted to do snorkeling. And, you know, you make the most of it, but all of those cancellations that we had ended up being great opportunities to relax and just hang out with their friends at the campsite. And a lot of them needed that downtime anyway. So, yeah, that's all I would add there. Thanks.
Perfect. We will keep on going. Thank you, Scott. All right, staying organized and planning your day. Steve.
So I mean, I think my fellow presenters are really thorough, and I think mostly everything I was going to talk about we've covered in good detail. But one of the things just that is on here is burnout and homesickness. And some people were asking in the chat about where kids go poop. And I think you know, we've had kids who don't love the Porta John, right, for the entire week. And so, you know, if they get Brown-Eyes syndrome, there is the nurse on staff. I think we talk about the facilities that are there, but there are flush toilets to take care of that business if kids really get gunked up. But really, it is, you know, for going from a weekend for groups who are going the first time to a week, it is a different experience, and you know your kids, so the flows of the week will come up to you know, will really come up to you to decide those things. And then again, as I think we've all said, the more information you can put into the kids' hands ahead of time, the parents' hands ahead of time, the more prepared they'll be to see what's going on and face the daily adventure of the camp. But again, I think most people pretty much covered everything we talked about here on this slide. So we'll keep going for the interest of time.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. All right, tips on what to pack. Andy will be talking about this. So camp is all self-contained, so you bring all of your gear with you. Andy.
Yeah, the actually the picture on the slide is a pretty good one to give you an idea of a decent organized camp layout. There's many ways to do it, but you'll note in the picture, you know, how, you know, the vast majority of stuff is containerized and you know, nicely organized. You're gonna, you know, it looks like a long list of stuff that you need. In reality, it's not that bad. It's just that because you're there for a whole week, you need a little bit more contingency stuff than you might otherwise. And, you know, your car isn't in the parking lot next to your campsite, so you got to haul a little bit more stuff. But, you know, obviously you need some kind of shelter. You're going to need tents, and you got to figure out, you know, how many people do a tent. Depends on the size of your tents, how you're going to organize that. Make sure you got spares. You know, things do happen during the week. And again, your car is not in the parking lot right next to your campsite. So make sure that whatever happens, you've got, you know, at least a spare tent, spare parts, and so forth. You know, tarps are a must. Figure out what you're going to do for dining shelter. Are you going to put up a tarp? Are you going to bring a garage shelter? Are you going to use pop-ups? Make sure that you've got sufficient stuff to tie them down. We've had some pretty nasty wind. The last 2 years the week we've been, there's been a heck of a lot of weather has blown through and has threatened to tip stuff over on the site. So whatever you've got, make sure that you didn't bring extra sails for the sailboats and you thought they were dining shelters, but they're now down the other end of the bay. So really remember to bring stuff to tie them down with and stuff to fix them with. You know, so a decent repair kit, and, you know, you can cover a multitude of sins with rope and duct tape. So make sure you got rope and duct tape. Obviously you're going to need light. You're going to need to cook. You know, decide if you're going to use propane or if you're going to use naphtha, and then, you know, or do both. But you got to bring all of the appropriate gear for that. And again, spare parts, lots of mantles for your lanterns. That's the thing everybody forgets. And we've actually had to lend them to other groups sometimes because people have discovered they, all of a sudden in the middle of the week, they can't make their lanterns work anymore. The thing a lot of people forget is a sufficient quantity of cleaning materials. You are there for a week. You've got a kaibo that you've got to clean. There's no housekeeping staff. Nobody's going to come around and clean the kaibo for you. You're going to do it. So make sure you've got the supplies to do that. You'll go through far more paper towel than you think you might. Make sure you have lots of kaibo tape, which for those not initiated with the term is toilet paper. Again, there's no housekeeping staff. Nobody comes around and restocks the kaibo for you. And if you haven't done a week-long camp before, you might be surprised how much you're going to go through in a week. And it's a lot of other camps you go to, somebody else takes care of that. This one, no, that's on you. Hand wash stations are a really good option. There's no kitchen sink. There's nowhere else to wash your hands. You can make a hand wash station out of a laundry detergent jug, the ones with the little dispensing tap built into them, and you just put soapy water in it and sit it on a picnic table. 2 or 3 of those will cost you nothing and really solve a lot of problems, including a lot of problems that might otherwise make people sick during the week. Kitchen supplies, this is really going to depend on what you're going to do. How you're going to cook. If every patrol is bringing their usual patrol box and working self-contained, that's one thing. If you're doing a central kitchen, you've really got to look at your menu and figure out all of the stuff that you're going to need. And the stuff I've listed there is just, kind of the stuff on our normal list of stuff that we bring, but we may decide we're putting something else on the menu and, we need to bring some of these things as well. So double check it after you've figured out your menu. Personal gear, and this can be all sorts of stuff. The things you may not think of, it will be in all of the information that TIA sends out, but people forget it anyway. Everybody needs to bring a whistle that you have on your person whenever you are on the water. People can bring their own PFD if they wish. If you don't, then the camp will supply one. But if you've got one that's your preference, you like it, and it fits you, by all means, bring it. Same with paddles. Our packing lists always say, always, check the forecast in advance. Well, that's a little hard to do for a week because the forecaster can't sometimes tell you what's going to happen tomorrow. But make sure that you got lots of rain gear, proper rain gear, not a light windbreaker shell jacket, actual rain suit. Swimwear, there's a lot of times they're going to be doing things in the water. Water shoes are almost a must. You can sort of manage without them. There's some of the youth just have a throwaway pair of canvas sneakers that they don't mind getting wet, but they don't dry very quickly, and sticking your foot in one of those when it's wet is a pretty icky experience. So water shoes really are a fantastic thing to bring. Fishing gear and fishing license if you're an adult. This is something a lot of people forget: a waterproof watch of some sort. The vast majority of times people are wandering around and they've got to know what time to be back. And a lot of people nowadays, they rely on their cell phone as their watch, which you may not always want to take on the water with you. And even if you do, it's probably going to be bundled up in a dry bag of some sort. And that may make checking what time it is a little bit difficult. Waterproof watch is cheap. Just go out and get one for everybody. Dry bags, knee pads for kneeling in canoes, power banks to charge your phones. There's no current bushes that work on any of the campsites. So most people's, phones, cameras, whatnot, are not going to last a whole week. So plan ahead for that. Sunglasses often get forgotten. And the really key thing, everything needs to be labeled. Especially if you've got folks that are sharing tents, because I don't know if your youth are like my youth, but my youth, as soon as you put 2 of them in a tent, it's like a bomb went off in there. And, I think they must have thrown all of their stuff against the tent, and, there's no way you're going to get that stuff sorted out. Make sure they label stuff. One thing that we've always done is we make up a set of tie-on name tags. So everybody gets 2. and it's got their, first name, last initial, their group name, and their campsite on it. And we put them in those little tag sleeves that you can get, really cheap on Amazon. And then we zip tie one to their PFD and we zip tie one to their day pack. And that has solved an immeasurable number of problems as they go around camp for the week. And you can do even more than that. We just normally make up a set of 2. We do them for everybody that attends. That's been a lifesaver more than once. If you are bringing a trailer with all your gear in, as opposed to it coming in the back of somebody's pickup truck, consider staging really solidly frozen food in one of those really good big coolers. Leave it in your trailer in the parking lot, and then do a run to that every couple of days, as opposed to having it on your site sitting there in the sun, and every 10 minutes somebody looks in it to go and grab something out of it. And your food will stay frozen a lot longer if you leave it alone and if you stick it in a trailer out of the sun. So we actually stick a cooler in our trailer, leave it in the parking lot, and we go out for resupply every couple of days, and our frozen food stays frozen. We've had stuff still frozen on Thursday afternoon, and we packed it on Friday when we packed the trailer prior to coming up on Saturday.
All right. Thank you so much, Andy. All right. So some services that are helpful to know about our camp. Every day, we pick up your garbage and recycling from your sites. You just separate it into the different types of recycling and the garbage. And we pick that up every day around 7. Just make your life easier, and so you don't have raccoons or bears visiting you. And then on the property, on the site, we have a clinic with a nurse there every single week. So they're able to help with like basic first aid stuff and some stuff a little bit more advanced. But if you get a really bad cut, or we saw this too often last year where people got fish hooks stuck in their hands, they had to go to the hospital. So there is medical assistance, but it's limited. So if you need to go to the hospital, it's about a 25-minute drive into town. We also have potable water, as we spoke of, at the mainland. So you're able to get your water jugs filled up every time you come over to the mainland area. Bring jugs to get them filled up so that you have water at your site. Also, as we spoke, we have barging for your group. So when you arrive to camp, you unload all your stuff onto the L dock, which is by the parking lot, and then you load it onto barges, as you'll see in this photo here. And then we bring you to sites. We do that with as many barges as we need for all of your gear and all of your people. And then we do the reverse thing the following Saturday morning, where we get all of you from your sites over to the L dock so you can pack your cars and go home. And then also on the property, we have 2 stores. We have a country store, which is a small grocery store, which we'll talk about next. And then we also have the trading post, which is like a small souvenir shop where we have candy, snacks, cold treats like ice cream, and also plenty of souvenirs to enjoy from your trip. So speaking of meal planning in the country store, so one big advice I can give you is that to plan your meals around your activities. So if you have programs right before and right after lunch, I wouldn't recommend making a plan to go all the way back to sites to cook lunch and everything, because it'll just take up too much time. So you can bring lunch over when you come over in the morning, and then you can eat it at the hub area, like sandwiches or what have you, whatever you guys would like to make. Another example, if you have a 9 a.m. lesson, would not recommend that you cook a fancy breakfast that's going to take you hours, because then you won't make it to your 9 a.m. lesson, and that will suck. And to make your life easier, so we have the country store. So the country store is like a small grocery store. We have all of your basic staples, items that you get at a grocery store: produce, bread products, dairy products, cheese, sliced meats, frozen meats, like chicken breast, hamburgers, sausages, that kind of thing. Things like cereal, pasta, like all that kind of stuff we stock. And then if you want like anything strange that we don't particularly carry, like kiwis or something, we can get that from town for you. And then this just makes your life easier so that you don't have to bring everything for the week, especially stuff that goes bad if it's not cold enough throughout the week, or sometimes the raccoons or squirrels like to visit and get into your stuff. So we're able to help you out there. We also sell crushed ice and block ice to keep your stuff cold. And then you can submit your grocery list early to us. If you want to pick up food from us every single day, you are more than welcome to. We will absolutely help you out with that. And actually, Larry with Mississauga Composite, he is going to chat about what they do with picking up groceries from the country store.
Hi. So how we kind of different from what Andy was talking about, how we've managed our food typically is we'll have all of our frozen items will last till about Wednesday, and we still use very good coolers, but we keep them on site. So what we typically do is we've planned out our schedule of events months ahead of time. We've got our meals aligned with that. And then once we know what will be perishable, well, we know bread is perishable. Bread in the humidity at Haliburton will last tops 3 days and you'll start to get mold. So what we've typically done is we have the things that we need to purchase and we arrive with a day-by-day schedule of what we will pick up from the country store. So when we arrive on Saturday, we'll hand that in and then also meet with the country store manager on it's that Sunday morning leaders meeting. Anyways, go through with them with our menu, and we have it listed out by our site, whether or not we have dietary restrictions on the top of our shopping list, whether or not we need halal food or not, and go through that. So we found Tia's management at the store and the store people are very good, very helpful, but they need time. They can get unique things, but you need to give them a couple days notice. So we found that arriving at the store with our whole week of pickups listed by day, each day on a separate piece of paper, really helps out the store. And then if you're on site and you think of something or you've forgotten to bring something, you can phone in to the store and ask them on a certain day, please add a couple of more items. You know, you might find your kids are going through a lot of bread, or it's a cold week and you'd like some canned soup or things like that, which is very helpful. So we've always found that very great. And one other thing I'd suggest at the store, because youth soon figure the system out, when you go into the store, you'll be able to list the people who are authorized to sign for food, and you'll pay for it at the end of the week. So we typically only have 3 or 4 leaders being able to sign for food. Okay. Would you like me to say anything else, Tia? Some of our experiences?
There we go.
You're me.
No, that was all great and very helpful, Larry. Larry also shared with us what their meal breakdown looks like and what they pick up from the store. So that's another resource I will share after this session. So thank you for that, Larry.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Alrighty. So we have some people joining us from the States, so welcome. Just some tips for international groups. One thing that's very important is to make sure your passports are valid and get that done early. I know sometimes it can take many months for them to go through, so make sure that is all good to go. Recommend not having knives in your carry-on because they will be taken from you, so just don't carry them on you. Next, if you've already booked with us for 2025, you have probably already received an email from our properties team requesting proof of insurance, a contract to sign since you were camping on a Scouts Canada property, and a letter of introduction. If you haven't already, you will receive this email shortly after you've booked. This letter of introduction is required. It just proves to us that you are in fact part of some sort of scouting organization. And then there is a form that you sign and fill out and you give to your council. Each council is different in how they process it. So I can't even tell you the process of it because each one does it very differently. So if you connect with your council, they're able to tell you how that goes for them, but there's one typical form to fill out for that. And then I can share that afterwards. And then also a lot of groups who are coming to us either from the States or from all over the world extend their trip. So our camp is a 8 days and 7 nights. So a lot of groups make it longer. Either they arrive a few days early or they stay a few days later after their trip to HSR, do stuff in Toronto or do stuff in Niagara Falls, and just get to enjoy more time in Canada. And it's a great experience for all of your kids. And then also I recommend starting planning early as soon as you're able to. There is so much that goes into planning a trip internationally. All the insurance you have to get through, making sure you have kids that are committed to coming to camp. So like taking deposits early, just so you know they are committed to coming to camp, and getting as many scouters as you're able to. It's a big trip to come, and so you want to make sure that all the kids have supervision at all times. But sometimes scouters need a break as well. So I recommend just having extra scouters. Either stay at site sometimes. I know some groups do that where scouters are like their only job that week is to be at site and cook things, or that's where they're supervising or stuff like that. Yeah. And if you ever have questions about international and connecting and finding out more information, please feel free to email me. I'll put it in the chat again. I'm happy to help out with anything that you guys need. Is Sean here?
Sean is here.
Hi, Sean. Did you want to talk about this?
I would love to. So Outward Bound Canada is a international charity whose goal is to remove barriers to getting kids outside. And we've done a few programming partnerships with Scouts Canada over the last couple of years. And one of the ones we're looking forward to this coming summer is helping run a composite camp at Outward Bound, at HSR this summer. And so the goal here is to help individual scouts whose scout troop might not be going to HSR and they'd really like to. They can come join us for a week and enjoy all that Scouts Canada has to offer at that beautiful property. But we're also there to help troops maybe who've never gone before, who might not have the experienced leadership to be able to pull it off, or maybe they've got not enough scouters who can take their vacation time in order to go up and enjoy that camp. So we're there for that as well. So we'll be running, as is there, weeks 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7, although it's possible week 3 might already be booked. So there are a variety of options. And if none of those weeks are working for your troop or your youth and you were hoping for another one, talk to us. We're here to help. We will take care of all the logistics, all the gear, all the food. The youth will arrive and experience a typical scout camp. They'll be working in patrols. They'll be setting up their own tents. They'll be cooking their own meals. They'll just need to arrive with the clothes on their back. We'll have everything else there prepared and ready for them for the week's adventure.
Thank you so much, Sean. Some more details about this will be coming out soon. So even if you're not registered with us for 2025 and you have kids who are interested, they can book with Outward Bound for this composite program. It's a great opportunity. All right. So we have reached the Q&A session. If you have a question, please raise your hand in the Teams thing. And then if you have a question for a specific person, please feel free to ask. And then to my presenters, if you would like to answer the question, please feel free. Okay, let's see. Michelle has a question.
Hi, it is kind of answered in the chat, but I definitely don't follow.
No worries, we're happy to help.
I'm reading the chat as I'm answering my question. If composite with Outward Bound, there are no adult leaders required from the troop. Do I have that right?
Yeah, so if you wanted your troop to come, they could just come, and Outward Bound will have sufficient staff to ratio and ensure they have a great, safe, well risk managed adventure. But at the same time, if let's say you've got a troop of 20, but only one scouter is available that week, we're happy to have that scouter come along. And there's no fee for scouters who are attending up to ratio. The fee is only for the youth.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks for the great question, Michelle. Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, am I live?
Go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered, I've been to HSR probably well, somewhere in the order of 40 times probably, but I'm looking, the one item that you've got new on the program since I wasn't there last year was the airsoft rifle range. I wonder if you could describe that activity for me.
For sure, yeah. So we used to have a rifle range with 22 rifles, and we're not offering that program anymore. Now it's just airsoft guns. So it's still the program is very similar. It's just not using real bullets. Now it's just airsoft, like little pellets. They're really tiny. They're biodegradable. So we still go through the same kind of safety aspects, how to use it, being safe with it. And then you still get to shoot at targets. You get 10 rounds. And we used to do a $2 fee per round. We don't do that anymore. All that is included now in the price.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Awesome. Do you have any other questions, or were we so good at answering questions the whole time? Well, oh, we got one more. Michelle, go ahead.
Since we have some time on our hands, I'm going to ask about the question that I keep getting. What is the actual mosquito situation like? When I bring this up, that's the first thing people say, no way.
For sure.
There are none. There are none. That's what I told my parents.
So we're in the middle of a forest. So there are definitely mosquitoes. Is what it is. But if you use bug spray and stuff, it is usually pretty good. During the day, they're typically not as bad. With the breeze and everything, and it's warmer during the day. They typically come out in the evenings or at night when the temperature drops. And like you're at your campsite and you're huddled around the fire, but it's nice around the fire because then the smoke keeps away the mosquitoes. So still bring plenty of bug spray. And like sometimes those nets like go over your head or whatever, those are also helpful for some people. So they exist. Don't listen to Steve. Does that answer your question, Michelle? Or is there more questions about mosquitoes?
The other thing is to get the kids to change the long pants and long sleeves in the evening, right? That helps a ton, right? Like that's good camping etiquette. They don't want to, right? Because they're running around the forest and it's warm and blah blah blah. But if you can get them to do that, that cuts down on bites.
Yeah, Danish has it right. The sweatier and stinkier you get, the less mosquitoes seem to bother you.
Yeah, don't wear perfume or anything like that. They love the smell of that, or like scented shampoo. So just stay away from that kind of stuff before you arrive and during the week. All right, Rebecca.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. This would be my group's first time coming to HSR. We've already booked our site.
Awesome.
And I've been asked by a couple scouters and a couple youth if they can bring their own kayaks or canoes.
Yeah, they are absolutely welcome to. There's just a form you have to fill out, which is available on our website. It's called an alien species form, just to ensure that they are clean and have been dried properly before coming into our lake, just so we don't have any kind of cross-contamination or invasive species. But yes, people are welcome to bring their own kayaks or canoes or paddles.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Is that it for the questions? Seems like it. All right, we did a great job. Good team. Oh, if my mouse would work, maybe. So some resources that are available. There is tons of stuff on our website, hsrcamp.ca. Under resources, we have the Scouter's Guide. The Scouter's Guide has anything and everything you would need to know about HSR. So peruse through that. Also available under our resources is our camp roster. So this is a sheet and form you'll have to hand in during check-in when you arrive to camp. Just so a heads up that you do need to fill that out with all of the information. It does ask for addresses, phone numbers, and that kind of stuff. Yes, you do have to fill it all out. Yes, we will ask for all of it. Also, just some things for program planning. So you're able to check out our website to see what programs we have available. Program booking, to book all of the programs we have available. You can do whatever you would like. If there's some programs you don't want to do, that's totally fine. Whatever your kids are interested in. So each group gets to book their own, all of their own programs, their own schedule, do what they would like. The sooner you book, maybe the better schedule that you'll have. The more availability is there. If you book really late, you'll have what's available. It may be limited. It might not be exactly what you planned, but we'll still get you in there. Booking will be available in the spring. I am working on getting something different than double knot for booking. I make no promises on it, but I'm working on something else. So I hope it works out for everybody, just to make it easier. Just to know about program planning and booking, we just ask that all groups book one program. Sorry, each group books a program only once. And then if you would like to book more after we have everybody in at camp, you're able to book more. Or if something gets canceled during your week, we're able to get you in later in the week as well as things open. Things like rain affects program booking and programs. If it rains, we have to stop climbing wall, low ropes, rappelling, archery, and riflery. All of our waterfront programs still operate in the rain, but if there's a thunderstorm, everything stops, and we send everybody back to sites if we know about the thunderstorm ahead of time. Okay. So just so we all know, after this session, it might not be immediately after the session, it may be tomorrow. I will send out the recording of this info nights, just so you have the information, because we shared a ton of helpful information. So thank you to everybody who participated and shared their insight. I will also share this PowerPoint slide, so you can take all this information with you, share with your other scouters, share with your group. I also share the Scouters Guide, like I mentioned earlier, has a ton of info. I will also be sending out a survey just so we get some more info about what would be helpful to know and what really helped you today. And there's a ton of resources we just got from Scouters. So there's stuff on budgets and patrol booklets. So I will send that all out to you. So be patient with me. There's a good chance it's not going to be tonight. So look for those in your inbox probably tomorrow. Okay. Do we have any last minute questions, comments, concerns? We are happy to help. We have one from Rebecca. Oh, I think. No.
Yeah, Rebecca.
Okay. Rebecca, maybe? Or is that still up from before?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I do. Yeah. Rebecca does have a question
No
that
worries.
I had thought about earlier, but I was just reminded there when you were talking about programming.
Yeah.
Our group, we have about 20 scouts that are expressing interest, and we have 6 venturers.
Awesome.
And I had read that some of the programming only accommodates up to 20 people at a time.
Yeah, so some programming like rappelling, we can't get like 25 to 30 people in a lesson. Typically 20 is pretty good. So in those incidents, just book one lesson. And then once everybody has booked, once you have arrived at camp, then we can book you in for a second lesson. Just so everybody gets the opportunity in those times. If you want to split your group in half, so you do 13 and 13 or whatever works for you guys. That way you're all able to participate in all of the programs.
Okay, great. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
No
you.
problem. Any other questions? This is all such great questions today, guys. If that is everything, I thank you everybody so much for attending this info night. Please share with others if they have questions. And thank you so much for attending. Presenters, if you could just hang on for a second before leaving, just so we can review like we do in Plan Do Review. Thank you, everybody.